I need you to do one thing for me. Please like and subscribe to this channel, and every little counts, and I do really appreciate you. Hi Seyi.
Hi everyone.
Yeah,
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
it's so nice to have you, and thanks for gracing us with your presence on the podcast. Who's Seyi?
Oh, okay. So Seyi is I am so Seyi is I am a art director working out of Nigeria, out of Lagos, Nigeria. Um, my primary focus in art direction is brand, but I recently started focusing very heavily on type design. As a result of my experience doing brand design for almost a decade. Um, yeah, but that pretty much captures what I am right now, what it is I'm trying to do with my life.
For people that follow you closely, they'll see how, your recent projects in type, especially. I know you started with Danfo, if I'm correct. Yeah. So what actually inspired you to start, exploring type?
Oh, okay, so while I was designing brand identities for Nigerian and for other African startups, something I realized was um, a lot of people don't quite understand how important type is in the whole system of like brand and like graphic design and like visual communications. Type plays a very, very important role. So type is two things. It is what you type with it, right? So the actual words, but it's also the story behind the type, right? So there is background information to the writing system, why you're writing in Latin, why you're using a serif, why you're using a sans serif, while Comic Sans look the way it does, why Trajan Pro looks the way it does. Like all of these designers, of course, try to create something that's functional so you can use in your project and, of course, imply your own meaning to it. But those things already come with some kind of meaning and some kind of story, right? So we would do brand identities, and these identities would be for African startups, Nigerian startups, and we could never really express the brand strategy and the story through type, because all the typefaces that we were working with were typefaces designed by Italian studios, by British studios, right? And these people are inspired by their own environment, by their own history, by their own story, right? So like if we were to design type for like a museum, imagine using a sans serif inspired by the New York Metro or something.
Yeah.
That's like something, that's an angle that you've lost.
It's like you're not,
because
it's
if
not
you could
connected,
use,
isn't it?
yeah, exactly. Because if you could like, the colors can be connected, the language can be connected, the logo can be connected, but then there's no connective story when it comes
Story
to
side
type,
of
and
it.
that's something lost. So I was like, when I get the chance, I can get myself together, I'm going to just try as much as possible to create a catalog of typefaces that are inspired by our history and our contemporary culture as Africans, so that other designers, if they ever need to, harness type as part of the story, they have a catalog to choose from. That's why I decided designing type.
Wow.
But one reason, Sha.
That's one of the reasons I can imagine. Yeah, because I know you've been speaking and speaking passionately about type, which I'm also passionate about. So, which of your projects has been your favorite so far? Because I know you've done two. So yeah, you've done two major types.
Two.
Yeah.
Yes, two.
So which one has been your favorite so far?
Yeah, that would be TAC. TAC because, well, it's called TAC 1 on Google Fonts.
Yeah.
And it's called TAC 1 because Google's back end, if you're designing a single weight typeface, Google does not recognize the typeface as one typeface. So for instance, if I were to design TAC with like light, medium, regular, bold, semi-bold, black, it would be TAC on Google Fonts. But the nomenclature, the engineering on the back end of Google, because it's just a single weight, that's why it's called TAC 1.
Okay.
So if we're able to like renew our contract and I add more weight, it's just the TAC. So TAC is just the name.
Okay.
And I really like TAC because TAC is very symbolic, right? It's not just, I mean, downfall too, but it's not just, um, you know, a typeface. It's a typeface that commemorates a very, very important event in our history, an event laden with a very complicated history. When people hear, when boomers, baby boomers and Gen X hear of FESAC, they immediately think, oh, that Juju festival that ruined our economy. When you tell Gen Z, a lot of them don't even know what FESAC is. When I initially started learning about FESAC, I did a lot of the learning on the job. Like I had heard from like bits and pieces, like read some articles here and there. Not Nigerian articles, I'm writing by the way, which is weird.
Wow.
On It's Nice Stats, on Guardian UK. That's where I could find like very robust coverage, which speaks to like our own documentation and like culture in this part of the world. But I couldn't really find like robust Nigerian
study
and of the event exactly. And when I eventually started to find, I had to dig really deep. Like I had to go to like museums and I had to do like archival research, and it's weird.
This is like a deja vu because Lee literally said the same thing, that if you want to, sorry to interrupt you, but if you want to, the worst thing you can do to a society is to erase culture or history. And this is happening right here. Like your example of, finding it difficult to find something that is so important to our history is just sad. But yeah, please go on.
Yeah, I mean, it's the story is so rich, right? Like FESTAC was created. The festival was FESTAC. The actual housing estate was created to house participants. There were over 15,000 people in Lagos attending from all over the world for the festival. Wow. The National Theatre was built because of FESTAC 77.
You're kidding.
FESTAC cost upwards of $400 million, which is billions of dollars now.
Wow.
In today's currency. Like, there are so many, a lot of people said Obasanjo laundered a lot of money through FESTAC, which is expected in Nigerian politics.
Man.
But like, there's this woman called Marilyn Nance. She was 23, I think. She's in her 70s now, I think, or 80s. Mark might be wrong. But she was sent by the US. She was covering the American delegate. So like people had like representatives that would come and perform different countries, but they also sent like their own photographers or their own like documentarians. So she was like the young bubbling photographer in school that was like ginger to just cover the event.
Wow.
And she's been eating steadily from the photos she took in the 70s.
Like till now?
So, yeah, till now. Like there are 2 images on tax websites. Those images cost us thousands of dollars for just a year's license. So like that's to show you, and she's exhibiting in museums. This is sad because there are old people in FESTAC right now with photos.
Wow.
There are people that have some kind of recording of the events that are just quiet.
Jeez.
So like, yeah, so the type project is very important, it's very special to me because like when you see it, it kind of forces you to go and learn just a bit more about it. And you learn a bit more, you may drop off, but at least you learn something, or you might be tempted to learn even more, which is what I really like about as a typeface.
Wow. I mean, you've mentioned so many important things, which some parts are saddening, but some parts are also promising. So let's focus on the promising side. How can we actually start to improve on the documentation side of history so that we don't miss out on things like this?
So that conversation is very like multidimensional because it has to do with like our values as people. That's one like critical component, but it's also like just individuals who are like super passionate about it and have started doing something about it and just supporting those people. Like one of my friends, Fuad, started archiving maybe like a year or two ago. I'm not sure exactly when it started, to be honest, but it's been picking up or taking off maybe in like the last year. And basically what they do is they look for newspapers from like 1960 up until now, and they scan them and put them on the web
Wow.
and make that information available to LLMs and to machine learning algorithms and all of that, so that
You can put them on the web.
if you need exactly if you need to retrieve information from 1992 from PM
That's
News, you
actually
can.
smart.
Right. So like, but that's what I mean. Like sometimes there's a value problem, but there's also just support the people who are doing the work. Like
Doing it.
someone like Fuad now shouldn't be struggling to raise money,
Mm.
right? If he says, okay, we need $10,000 because we want to do or invest a little bit more into our research algorithm or our scanning algorithm, the community should support him because he's doing the work already,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so like you could support people like Fuad, you could support people like Republic.ng, support researchers, but then there's also like a values problem because we're not really taught to like value our history, and I don't know whether that's a trauma response to like
Now that's a deep conversation.
yeah, it could be a trauma response to like the military and like the way the government has bullied us in the past. Like, see NSAS now.
Yeah.
There are people who are actively trying to forget NSAS because it was a traumatic
I
experience.
think everybody's trying to forget that answers.
You
Most
know
people.
what I mean? So
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And some of our parents, I know we are very like hard on them, but they went through multiple iterations, multiple versions of NSAS. Multiple, right? So for some of them, they're just tired and they actively try to forget. Now, you cannot expect people actively trying to forget something to record it. So like, it's just many layers, man. It's many things. So like, I guess what we can do is you find people that are doing the work, support them how you can.
Absolutely.
And if you can also like document something, you find something to just write about it.
Absolutely. That's 100%. That's actually so true. Let's talk about life and, should I say evolving, right? Evolving as a designer from, being obviously in the same school and, in the same studio. What was life for you like?
Life, Unilag was like it was interesting. It was very like, so personally, Unilag was like, I had to face like my, intro. And so how do I explain this? I like to think that I'm introverted. A lot of people don't believe that, but like, I had like serious like esteem issues. I was really, really passionate about design, really, really passionate about like, architecture. But the thing with going to school is you get a lot of freedom, but then you're forced to interact with like people. Like you're forced to like talk to people. You have to depend on them in some cases. And it forced me to be like a lot more social than I would have been otherwise. As far as design goes, Unilag was some of my experience in architecture, and you can attest to this, was very special. Like being in classes with Professor Igwe, there were like lots of very, very beautifully designed buildings in Unilag. Like
absolutely.
Julius Berger Hall, like Sciences, like even Aki was very, very well designed, so like even like some hostels, right? Like Mariri, like, you see a lot of intention, like Jaja.
Yeah.
So like, I really like really like gave me like a sense of like appreciation of like the built environment, but it also like forced me and exposed me to start my journey of trying to understand people and getting people to understand me. Which was not easy, but I mean, we're where we are now.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like a lot of people didn't get to experience that side of you, like this side of you, like the design side of you. Personally, I did not really get to experience. I think the closest thing I saw, that we also like was like your studio works, which everybody's like on that race, that rat race to finish your studio.
Yeah, like in school, man, I had very, very poor discipline when it came to like actual school work.
Okay.
Like many people, I was the last minute guy. I like to do a lot of rush work towards the end.
play COD for like
um,
90%. Did you used to play COD?
yeah, yeah, I did know.
Okay, fair enough.
We did.
90%
This guy has
COD,
forgotten.
10% the studio.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was crazy. And I think the reason, I mean, like, I think I was just trying to find myself,
Mm,
design wise in school.
yeah.
I was doing a lot of like side gigs
Yeah.
of graphic design.
Okay.
So while in school, I had like clients outside school
Okay.
that would engage me once in a while for like branding gigs. So like I had like, there was this company called Popcom, and they used to do like brand activations for South African Airlines.
Wow.
And they were one of like my first clients. Like I had these guys like maybe when I was like year four.
Wow.
Um, and we designed the branding. There was Aja Jide. I don't know if remember Jide now?
Of course.
Dog guy, dog. So
J-Dog.
like, yeah, J-Dog. J-Dog was, oh my God, J-Dog, what the hell? I forgot his name. Yeah, like, yeah, J-Dog,
I
man.
actually went way back into
Sorry.
your. It's alright. J-Dog, sorry to you. She is too big now. It's too big. It's forgetting people's names. But yeah, we're there.
No.
When J-Dog even started, we were there. We were
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
We were.
J-Dog was one of my first clients. I
Really?
designed like his logo. Yeah, it was his
Damn.
uncle that owned Topcom. It was his uncle
Oh,
saw the work I did for him and then
really?
asked for my numbers, and that's how
Wow.
like how I really like started to believe in the power of
How much did you
referrals
do that
and just
logo?
doing the best I
Jide's
can.
logo.
Man, I don't know, man. I think maybe it was like 15K or 20K or something like
That's
that.
actually fair. I was expecting less because we
No,
were all students. But J-Dog was making money that time already. He was serious in the
yeah.
business. He's probably still in it.
Yeah, he was. He probably still in it. I stumbled on his page some weeks ago. I think
Yeah.
he's still at it.
Wow.
Yeah. So like, yeah. So I guess it's really, we're in school. A lot of people find their voice when it comes to like design early on. Other people find it much later.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did not practice Aki
Mm.
at all.
Mm.
Like right out of school, I just continued my brand work.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't. I apart from IT, I never went to any sites.
Apart from
I have
IT?
zero experience. IT, apart from COS, like
like
apart from my
yeah,
COS like
yeah.
experience, outside that, Aki has never like fed me for a day. So like,
Wow. I thought it was bad,
yeah.
but I
So
think
like,
you're worse. For me, yeah. I never also practiced, but yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
which is crazy, right?
Crazy.
So yeah.
Crazy.
So I mean, that's what school was like for me, man.
Wow. So like when did you realize obviously you said you got your first clients when we were in uni. So how did you evolve from that freelance designer who used to design gigs here and there
Mm.
to becoming a business owner, like an agency owner in that design? How did you
Yeah.
do that?
Oh, like my thinking was very, very cliche, right? You're a freelancer, you want to make more money, so you try to appear more corporate. And that's just the gig,
Mm.
right? So like you think that as a freelancer, and my mind about that has changed now because I am technically a freelancer right now,
Wow.
right? And I'm making the most money I've ever made in my life as a
Wow.
freelancer,
Wow.
not as a business owner. So like, so I started freelancing, but they asked me for your account number, you send your personal account number. Yet
Fair.
you are saying that you are
A
a
business.
studio
Studio.
or you're a business. So
Yeah.
like exactly. So like
See you at
all this
self-employed.
exactly. So all these inconsistencies,
Yeah.
right, are what pushed me, right? So like I started reading a little bit more about the legal benefits of having like a company be a legal entity so that the legal entity can absorb issues or absorb whatever if anything ever happens. It's not you directly, it's the company. Like there are several benefits to like starting like registering like an LTD or an LLC or whatever, right? So like and I think I also wanted to. I remember making icons. So Wema Bank had just rebranded, and I wanted to pitch Wema Bank, and I didn't want to go as a freelancer,
Okay.
right? So they rebranded. They did like this very like the logo, like, it's like a
Yeah.
W with like
Yeah.
spaghetti like purple, right? So I was like, I saw the logo, and my naive self, I was like, I'm just going to design like a set of icons and extend the logo into like some kind of brand system
Okay.
and present that to them.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of goodwill with people because I had joined like a group called Niger Graphic Designers by
Okay.
Daniel Emeka way back.
Wow.
And they knew me from like a few posts. So after school, I just reached out to them. I was like, does anyone know corporate comms at Wema Bank? I'm trying to like send him a proposal. And weirdly enough, I got his number. His name is Otega Ogra. I think
Yeah.
he works with Tinubu now. I think he's in charge of comms or something with
Yeah.
Tinubu right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I got his email. I spoke to him. He said that that's not how things work. Like you can't just like pitch design work like that, right? And I was like, oh well, like how am I now going to make money? Like this is my big
Yeah.
plan out of school. It
I'm
has
shooting my
flopped.
shot.
And then I was like, I'm going to send it anyway. So I managed to get like emails of like directors of like I will scroll through the web just hoping something had leaked somewhere, and I sent all these people emails and I never got any response.
Damn.
Then I just put it up on my website, on our websites then. So that
So
design
that design had already
studio.
started then.
That design studio had started then, but it wasn't a formal entity.
Got it.
But we knew that we wanted to establish a website based off the work we could do and what we had done.
Got
so on
it.
that website, I remember our first projects were the Wema Bank icons, were Ajajide's branding. Dami and I took art directed photos of our hands.
Okay.
We
I think I
printed
saw
our
those,
business
yeah.
card, and that was a project.
Yeah.
And then we put that up, and then Paystack reached out, and that's when like we started pop-up.
Wow.
And the head of design at Paystack reached out.
How was that? How did that?
Now,
What was the impact of that moment? Or
yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
That was crazy because that was like validation that like, oh, we actually have like something to offer, and someone can see
Wow.
that we're trying to like do something differently from what other people were doing. Because at the time, there weren't many brand designers and brand agencies.
Not so many.
What you would find would be marketing
agencies,
advertising agencies that do branding.
Yep.
Right. So like the thing with marketing is I think marketing is secondary to branding. A lot of marketing people hate to hear that because they think branding is secondary to marketing.
Absolutely.
Like you see branding and marketing people in the conference, they're always beefing each other because in their minds they're like, my job is more important than your job. But like,
I speak for
so
both,
like,
but yeah, I take no side.
So Okwe tweeted that on our website that like, oh, these guys are like one of the first like brand design people that I'm seeing that are trying to do something different.
That's the head of Paystack, head of
design
at
at
Paystack.
And then he reached out, he sent us like an email like maybe a couple of days after saying that their company had gotten into Y Combinator.
Correct.
They had gotten investments and they would like to revise their branding.
Wow.
And that's basically how it started.
Damn. Boom.
I still remember what I wore to the office, man. I did so fucking hard.
I mean, respect the process. Respect the process.
Yeah, but shout out Paystack.
Shout out Paystack.
Basically,
shout out Paystack.
Basically, give us
shout out to agencies that give creatives the platform to actually explore and express themselves and become actual entities. Because I feel like that design changed the landscape for me. After Paystack reached out and you guys started working with Paystack, obviously you guys like scaled and everything. So how was it setting up that design? Becoming like
Man, it was just me and Dami, I think, for like first couple of years.
Oh, you're joking?
Yeah, it was just me and Dami. So like, I'm obsessed with like picking skills. Like something along the journey that I realized is maybe I wasn't even super passionate about brand design as much as I was passionate about just learning things.
Really?
And it sounds very like cliche, but every single project we did, I forced myself to pick up software to learn something that I had never done before.
Wow.
And I have such a high bar for myself that it sometimes it's unhealthy because like I will push myself to the limit until I achieve what I want on a certain like level of quality.
Wow.
And I took up motion design, brand strategy, copywriting, color theory, type design, type layout, composition. I'm basically like a walking living studio, and I'm not even bragging. Like
I can't tell. You're
InDesign,
not capping. I can
Illustrator,
tell.
After Effects, Cinema 4D, Arnold, like if you put it in front of me, one thing I tell like my wife, Dami knows is that I can't ever be idle. And because I can't be idle, I can't be broke because I always have something to offer.
Hmm.
And that mantra is something I built with that design studio. That design studio forced me to be multi-skilled because I would sit and it would be very hard to find people that understand what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to say. So I end up doing it myself.
There you go.
And that happened so many
There you go.
times. And it created a very toxic habit because when people started to actually become capable, because over the years, the internet, made knowledge more accessible. All the knowledge and all the things that I had to like really dig to find.
Yeah.
People started brand new and by under consideration started writing articles about branding.
Yeah.
Many people started writing. There were lots of design takes on the internet. So people started to actually learn. So even when the knowledge was now like outside, I would very stubbornly keep to myself, which is why I said it bred like some kind of toxic habit. And I wouldn't reach out. It's towards like maybe the last 3 years of that design studio that we openly started collaborating. Prior to that, I used to do pretty much 80% of all the design work. With Dami doing like leading on strategy and like creative thinking and creative direction, which is very critical.
Wow.
And that's what we did. It was towards like maybe the last 3-4 years that we started hiring properly. We started collaborating with photographers, with 3D artists, with illustrators, with web designers. Prior to that, I did every single thing.
Jeez.
Everything. I built the first website. I did all the motion, everything. It is incredibly unsustainable.
Damn.
Like I was burnt out all the time.
Oh my goodness.
Burnt out all the time. In fact, I was so burnt out that when Pentagram reached out to us and said that and wanted to collaborate with us on Green Africa, I was burnt out at Pentagram. Like I feel like I was not my best self on that project because I was just burnt out from years of work.
Jeez.
And it took me like a long time to eventually like recover.
Damn. Wow.
So like it's not healthy, Sha. Please, I beg. Collaborate as much as you can.
You're the second person coming on this platform to mention this unhealthy habit with creatives of perfectionism. Like, why are we like this?
You know, a lot of designers, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself, so I don't want to, let me just speak for myself, but a lot of designers typically start design because they feel like it's an outlet, right? You find that a lot of designers are introverted. They're introverted because they have somewhat poor social skills. And that's because they are so a lot of designers don't start work or start design to sell. They don't start it to make money out of it. They start it because it's cool and it's an outlet.
Like an expression.
Right?
Platform.
You know what I mean?
I get you.
Exactly. Yeah. Like it's something that I'm doing because it makes me feel good. I can make things that are fine.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like that's how it usually starts. Right? And because of that, they don't develop the proper skills to like talk to people, to like,
interact,
be inquisitive about process, to ask questions. All those things are things that if you go to a proper design school, because a lot of us are self-taught too, if you go to a proper design school, you're with teammates. So you're forced to like, your process is bare. Like everyone can see it because you're in the same class with them, right? You know how we were in Aki now? Like if you have a question about Revit, you can ask someone about Revit. You have a question about SketchUp. There's Larry. Jesus Christ, I remember people. There's Larry with his DV7 or DV6.
Which HP.
Larry now, Elmag.
Oh, yeah.
There's Elmag. There are people that are experienced that you can talk to.
Yeah,
now, that's because we went to school. Now, imagine if it was graphic design we studied. So like a lot of people don't have that experience, and because 2 reasons: they're not formally trained, which I think helps them build network and helps them speak up, and it's born out of like self-discovery.
Mm.
And that's why a lot of them are introverted.
Yeah.
Some of the best designers I know right now, the skill to come out and talk in public about their work,
Mm.
the skill to ask questions, the skill to collaborate, they learned it on the job. It's not
Right.
something that they had from the beginning.
Mm. And it's so
It's very
crucial,
rarely
right?
you find people like me. Yeah, exactly. It's very, very rarely you find people like me,
Nee
where
actually
like
was not
collaboration is
so
the DN. Yeah,
was
you
not
see,
so outspoken like this. Nee used to be in his
you
house,
see,
always working. I mean, you heard him, always working,
yeah,
very unhealthy, like learning just like you, like doing everything himself. And then I think you're right. Like it's like the self discovery journey. Eventually, you realize that it's not sustainable. But please go
exactly.
on.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, man. Like, and that's why, like, I try to like, it's still, to be honest, it's still very like, it's still a point of tension for me
Mm.
because I, I still have to actively think about it. Like, there are some people that once they encounter projects, collaboration is in the ideation stage. Like they're already thinking of who to call
Mm.
before the project is even fully formed in their head.
Mm.
For me, I like to think of the idea and complete it, like to fully understand what it is that needs to be done before I start to think about other people.
Mm.
And those are remnants of that my isolated,
Got it.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean, right? So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like for the type project, for instance, from the beginning, once I got the opportunity, I made it a point to work with two other Nigerian type designers.
Good.
It was an active decision that I made to build Tack and Downfall with Eyemi and David, right? So like, yeah, please collaborate.
Or else you burn out. So for I'll speak about two things now. So like working on so that means working on Danfo was just you.
Yeah, in 2018 it was just me.
Wow.
Our typical process at the studio is I have an idea, I run it through Dami. Dami thinks about it. Dami tries to help me ground the intention and the possible perception of that project. So when
Mm.
I told her I wanted to build Danfo as a typeface, she was like, the feedback I got from her was like, this is sophisticated. This is something that will put you in conversations with more sophisticated African designers. This isn't just a logo. It's type. It's one of the fundamental elements of graphic design. Nobody else is doing this.
Mm.
Right? So like she just and that's what she did throughout the time that we're running the studio. Apart from like obviously um design work, she's very good at like putting things into perspective and
Perspective.
helping you define the value that you're trying to create.
Yeah.
Right. So once she just said those things, I was like, yep, I'm definitely doing this. So
Yeah.
I went to, what was it? Was it living in Palm Grove then? So I went to like the closest bus stop, took photos of stickers and just started drawing with
Mm.
cracked software, with
We've
font
all been
lab
there.
that
Come
I
on. We've
cracked.
all been there. Do not despise the little beginnings. Yeah. Wow. You actually mentioned, something that I was going to touch on later, but yeah, you brought it sooner. Working with Dami, I feel like you got lucky there, man. I feel like you got lucky there because for me, I mean, I will allow you to speak on it, but you guys made like a great team. Tell me, how was it working with her? What was the impact of actually having her on your team? Like you guys collaborating?
Yeah, I mean, like, the thing with Dam is she's not just like a work partner. Like, we're obviously married now, so you can understand how important she is to me.
Yeah.
But like, I remember when we started like dating, it felt like um it felt like I could take on the world, man. Like
Mm.
it felt like I knew all the things that I think I have a good instinct for value and for things that are valuable.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I think I have that. I've had that for like the longest time. And I knew what my shortcomings were. I knew that I wasn't great at talking. I wasn't very eloquent. Um, I, I knew that I was very hardworking if I needed to be. Like I could grind and lose sleep over work. I knew I was passionate. I needed someone who was a critical thinker, someone
Mm.
who's very eloquent, someone who is very clear on who they are and able to present points in a way that is, I mean, like, remember, you can't argue with Dami
Nope.
in like, you can't, like, she will
Do
drop
not do
points, she
that.
will drop bombs. You just don't argue with her. And people are like, they know her on Twitter now, and
Yeah,
like,
she's been who
you know,
she is from time.
yeah,
Yeah,
but that's who she's been
she's
from
been from
time,
time. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Exactly. So
yeah.
like, um, I was like, this person has all the qualities that I am missing. And if the both of us combine and start something, or like, if apart from like life, if the both of us just combine and work on anything, we will crush it. That
Mm,
was the energy that
mm,
and yeah, and that was it, man. Like working with her was great. The decision to even close the studio was a mutual decision between myself and her, right? It was something that we both decided to do. So like, she's incredibly patient. She's better with people.
mm.
I learned so much about leadership from her,
Wow.
right? I learned so much about vulnerability from her.
Mm.
um, Running the studio, all my staff like her more than me.
For
Like
obvious
that's
reasons.
never, yeah, like that's never something I'm trying to like be ashamed of or
Yeah,
something I will say.
yeah,
Like everybody that's ever worked with us loves Dami.
yeah.
Like just because like the things that you need in a leader, just like patience, just like kindness. I'm not saying that was the exact opposite of all these things. I'm just saying that these
Disclaimer.
things came. I'm just a disclaimer. I'm just saying that these things came naturally to her.
Yeah, yeah. I can
So like
imagine.
there was no effort. Like you
Mm,
go to meet her, she's kind, she knows how to, she's very critical, she's very respectful. Me, if I'm like, you send me a message, I might not respond immediately because I know I need to gather myself. If not, I
mm,
will talk rubbish.
mm.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So like, I need
Mm-hmm.
to like get myself
Yeah.
together. But like, you can catch her at any moment, and she will just know she's like Steve Jobs,
Mm.
essentially. That's
Wow.
how I see her. And yeah, working with her was the best decision I ever made, man.
Wow.
Marrying her is, no. Working with her is second best. Marrying her is the best
I
decision.
just. Yeah, it's obvious you guys make a great team, and I mean,
Yeah.
I'm so jealous of that partnership that you guys have, and I feel like he brought, like you said, like you rightly said, I feel like he brought out the best in you, and your work, like you guys, your work was, it was evident that there was that strategy side to it, and you guys made a great team essentially. That's great. So, I mean, you've already touched on another thing that I was going to mention later, which is closing the studio. What led to that?
Closing the studio was a very tough decision.
Hmm.
I felt so personally, I felt like I had failed.
Wow.
Like I had a dream to run the foremost design studio or company in Africa.
Hmm.
In fact, it was in Nigeria. That was my dream initially. And then I expanded to Africa after a couple of years. And when I got a confidence boost after years of work. And it became like, it was a mix of many things. It
Hmm.
was the experience creating work for Nigerian startups. It was the state of maturity of the ecosystem. So when I mean state of maturity, it's like we're creating work for a lot of startups. Startups require things that are different from branding than established companies. Like branding does very different things for different businesses at whatever stage that they're at.
Hmm.
Startups need to be agile. Startup means they need to move fast, you know. So like if you put a lot of care and dedication into a brand system for a startup, 2 months after they launch, the product can change,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and you can't fault them.
You
You can't even
can't.
be upset because
Mm-hmm.
that's just the nature of
Of that space.
startups.
Yeah.
A startup is by definition just starting up. They're
Mm.
trying to figure out product market fit. They're trying to figure out who they are, what it is that they actually bring to the market,
Mm.
what the actual value is. They're trying to figure out who their market is. They're trying to figure out what it is that they're trying to do. It's many
So many
things. And
things.
they are doing this a lot of them are doing this on investors' dime.
Mm.
So
Fair.
there's pressure.
Pressure.
There's pressure to figure all of these things out. So you don't expect them to treat systems that you designed as sacred, right? If they need to break it, they'll break it because the main thing for them is returns for
Returns. Breaking even.
shareholders. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, breaking even. So like it's tough. Like sometimes we design work for startups that had found themselves early on. And those people were more faithful to the systems. People like Cowrywise.
Okay.
The thing that they came to us with is what they are now, but evolved.
Okay.
The thing that Paystar came to us with is what they are now, but a lot more evolved. So you find that a lot of the businesses that still, to some extent, maintain a lot of the identity work we did are people that, you know, found themselves early on. No shade to the people who did it. That's just the nature of the work, right? So that's one aspect. The second aspect is just the state of like commerce, right? So, and this has to do with money, right? Right now, I am making maybe 20 times what I would make in a year, in a month. When I was running the studio as a freelancer.
Wow.
So I always knew that I could earn a lot more. And at a point, it started feeling sacrificial. It started feeling like, almost, at a point, I might want to have a family. At a point, I might want to have kids. At a point, I would want to not worry about rent and I want to buy a house. And there's this car I've been eyeing for 2 years, 3 years, and I want to own that car. And I knew inherently that I had the skills to earn that money.
Yeah.
But it started feeling like I was sacrificing so much to keep the studio running. You know what I mean? So it didn't make sense anymore. And then, of course, Dami started, like, she always wanted to, like, paint. But not just, like, paint as a hobby. Like, paint and have her paintings being expensive spaces and in world-renowned galleries and stuff like that. So even while we were running the studio, she would paint, and that started to take off. She got signed. She started exhibiting in House of Fine Arts. She started catching the eyes of global curators. And there's also the money angle. It didn't make any sense for her to be earning what she was earning in Naira when one painting will basically pay her salary for 5 years. You know what I mean? So like, it didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So like, I guess you could look at it like maybe, you know, we felt like we had achieved everything we reached out to, we planned to achieve. Like, I can put Pentagram on my resume. I can say I work with Eddie Opara. I can say I work with the largest independent consultants in the world. I can say I work with the big startups in Nigeria. Like, all of these things are things that when we started, this was the dream, and we achieved the dream. I can say we shifted the needle and advanced and matured the conversation around brand design and design generally in this space. And I can say we did that, right? So like, in a way, we achieved everything we set out to achieve. But then, you know, and then there was also like one last reason, and that last reason is very, very touchy. The last reason is personal between me and Dami. There was it became a little bit tense for us in our relationship. Because she's really good at breaking and demarcating work from home. Like, once it's 5, we work from home. we both work from home.
You used to?
Right? So like, I
even
still work in my
design?
house right now. We didn't have like an office.
Really?
Like, there was a room in my studio, in my house. There was a studio in my house that had like tables and computers. So if my team wanted to come in and we needed to do something physically, they would come in, they had the tools.
Wow.
Right? But like, my team was remote maybe 95% of the time around the studio.
Wow. This was pre-COVID.
Yeah, this was pre-COVID. COVID didn't really change the needle.
So you guys were already remote before COVID?
We were already remote before COVID. Like, it didn't really make any change.
Whoa.
We figured out like
That's
the
mad.
efficiencies and all of that. Yeah, a lot of people say it's mad when we tell them.
That's mad.
Yeah.
That's bruh. Anyway, going on.
Yeah. So like, so once it's 5 p.m., even if we just had a tense argument about our direction, because the both of us are very passionate, as you can tell, you know us. If we have the argument at 4:59, at 5, she switched off. Like, she would go to the living room and she would put on Love is Blind or whatever. And she would expect me to sit down with her and watch it like we didn't just argue a minute ago.
It's a wrap. That's work.
But I was shit at that. Damn. I was so bad at it. Damn. Oh my God. Like, design for me is so like personal and so like, I think about it every time as I'm in my waking moments, right before I sleep. And it was getting to a point where like that was all that, or
There
at
is.
least the majority of our relationship.
Hmm.
And we had a relationship before the studio.
Hmm.
So there was that nostalgia of, bro, this, you're not fulfilling your contract. This is not what you promised me.
What I signed versus what I got, or what I ordered versus what I got.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
like it got to the point where like we had to make a
Hmm.
decision where like, apart from these other reasons, I think another reason why we should just end it, or whether we should work alone, is just this tension, and so that our actual relationship can bloom. And that for me was the biggest reason.
Wow.
Every other thing was secondary.
Wow.
That for me was the biggest reason, and that's like one of the reasons why we close this studio.
Wow.
Some people can work with each other. Like I envy couples that, like right now I'm consulting for an architectural practice,
Really?
and I just found out that the creative director and the managing director are married. They have kids,
Wow.
and every time I see
Nigeria
people like
based?
that, I'm like, yeah, like, I don't not mention their name, but they're
Okay.
an architectural practice. They do really good work,
Okay.
amazing work.
Okay.
And I just realized that they are married. I just realized that their surnames are the same. They're
Wow.
actually married.
Wow.
And every time I see people like that, I'm like, man, the self-control and the amount of respect they must
Hmm.
have for each other must be insane, because it's
Yeah.
not easy to work with
It's
your
not.
partner.
It's not.
It's not,
Yep.
right? So like, yeah, there's that.
Wow. Oof. That was something. That was something.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's good to hear these stories because I swear I would never. I bet a lot of people didn't know this too, but
yeah,
it's good to hear that. I mean, it's good to see that. Obviously, you're quite intentional about the decision, and it has paid off, right? It has paid off. Obviously, from you saying that, earning and achieving, right? From those point of views, we'll just talk through some of your projects, right? Some of your interesting projects,
okay.
and like your style, your direction, your creative process. I mean,
Yeah.
just looking through your work, how do you approach work? Like, what's your creative process like?
It depends on the project. It depends on the client. It depends on commitment from the client.
Yeah.
It depends on timelines. It depends on how interesting the business is or the brand is. It's very, very like like faceted. But the way we kind of kept that bar of excellence consistent is, we first of all are very stubborn when it comes to time. We're not ashamed to, at least at the studio, we're not ashamed to miss timelines and deadlines. This was not intentional. It's not like we will say, oh, something will take 3 weeks, and then, we will deliberately from the beginning be lounging and not meet 3 weeks. The extension for time is something that was born out of iteration
Mm.
and, trying to get the best idea out.
Yeah.
And many, 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 many times that we will do that, the clients would admit that, yeah, the extra time was worth it.
Oh.
And I also very like, this is something we used to do, because like I realized that like I would rather spend time and miss my deadline and do work that's excellent than to meet a deadline with work that's subpar. Um, now as a freelancer it's different, because I actually need to meet time, because I don't have the presence of a studio
Yeah.
behind me per se, right? And as a freelancer, I still need to build my portfolio to command that kind of respect.
Mm.
Um, but like, yeah, at the studio, we could be a month over, we could be maybe like a few weeks over. And, we would always ask for time if we needed time to do something that was great.
Mm.
And we were very critical thinkers, very critical, very hardworking. So like, every single thing we did, we were very, very particular about story,
Mm.
which is why I said type design, which is why I mentioned type design. For story, you want to tell the story of a brand, and you want every single element of the brand to have something to do with that story,
Mm.
right? You want to say this, let's say, um, Paystack, the first identity we did for Paystack.
Yeah.
There was a reason why we chose Boeing. That's because a lot of the financial technology platforms at that time were using a lot of very sharp edged sans serifs
By Boeing,
that
you
were
mean,
like,
is that the motion language?
no, Boeing is the
The
typeface that we use
typeface.
for
Okay.
Paystack.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like this sans serif that's like very like has like very soft. Is
Okay.
the one in their wordmark right now. It has like very like nice soft rounded edges, and that was very unexpected for a financial technology brand at the time
Yeah.
because it's soft. Like you'd expect that for like maybe like a kid's
Mm,
book or
mm,
something, right? But it was important because at that time there was a lot of distrust in financial transactions online. It's not like now where like you can beat your chest and like send 10 million naira
mm.
the transfer.
Yeah.
Then it wasn't like,
Yeah.
you couldn't, if you drop like 10K over the internet to buy something, you have to be beating that. What if my money gets, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like the function of type then was to like get people to embrace
Mm.
the brand a little more, to make it a little bit more appealing, to literally soften the edges. And the choice of color, the motion system, the logo, all of these things had something to do with the concept statement at the time, which was trusting easy.
Mm.
That was the concept statement for Paystack, trusting easy.
Trusting
So they
easy.
wanted to show that, yeah, trusting easy. Usually when something is easy, you don't really trust it because you are worried that by default, anything that feels good should be complicated
Mm.
in some way in the back end or whatever. But Paystack is trying to say that, see, as in when they had just started and when they were trying to enter the market after a first round of funding,
Yeah.
what they're trying to do was, see, we figured out the tech.
Mm.
Just come. Everything about us is trying to communicate to you guys that trust us. We figured it out. We figured out the user experience. It's going to be easy for you. You don't need to be worried or concerned that it's easy. You don't need to be suspicious that it's easy. It's easy and that's what it is. So just trust us. So like, and that's what we did for Paystack. And then for Carry-wise, patterns inspired by money.
I feel like Carrywise was an interesting project for me. I feel like probably one of your best work. I don't know, maybe that's something that a lot of people maybe you even feel like, I don't know, but I feel like Carrywise was whew. And I think some other
Yeah.
projects that you've done too, but yeah, I think Carrywise in that finance Paystack was great, yeah, but I feel like Carrywise was greater. That's just my opinion though. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, it depends, right?
Yeah.
So, a lot of people judge greatness based on different things. Like, Carry-wise
Obviously.
was definitely more robust.
Okay.
So when I say robust, I mean there were many devices. There
Yeah.
was type, there was color, there was patterns.
Mm.
Paystack was a kind of like a tighter package, in that
In that
sense.
sense, okay.
Another project that I really, really liked and I loved very deeply, but didn't really catch on, and a lot of people, it flies over their heads, is Coffee Club. I think Coffee Club was also really, 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 in fact, Pentagram reached out to us because of Coffee Club.
Really?
Because of how sophisticated Coffee Club was.
Wow.
Because Coffee Club was African, but not like in a cliche way. Like, we didn't use the tribal patterns. We didn't use like the triangles with the pointed black and red and yellow and
yeah, that can be
no shade to those people,
bro,
right?
But
shade, like
shade to them, myself inclusive, because bro, yeah, I've designed with those things. I'm like, nah. When I look back, like, what was I thinking? Yeah, that was like, that defined like Africanness at some point.
Yeah,
and then you
and
guys
it's still
came
there.
and it's still there. It's not like it's not there because like obviously it's our roots. But then you guys change. Go on, speak about it, like changing that narrative to like making subtle and all. So how did you approach Coffee Club? Tell me about it.
Yeah. So like for Coffee Club, one thing the client said was that we want this to feel African but not cliche.
So
the
client actually even defined that narrative.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And which is what the point I was trying to make is that, like, and make earlier, is that a very important part of the process is the quality of the client. You really cannot do you can't do great work for clients that aren't great. That's just the truth. Like, Apple's product design, Apple's marketing, Apple's branding is because there's an inherent part of Apple that culturally that's just great, that pulls that out of whatever contractor they collaborate with. It's like, that's just the way it is. Steve Jobs was toxic as hell. Like people say he was a horrible person to work with, but he would pull out the greatness. He would literally drag it out of you, right? So like, yeah, so the client was like, we want this to feel African, but we don't want it to look tribal and we don't want it to look cliche. So we now started like reading up, studying what the things that feel contemporary and feel modern, but also feel African, but not in a way that is like, expected. And so we were inspired by like, those Agbo Goes to School books, those old like illustrations, those Chinua Achebe covers. Those things feel very like hand-drawn, very African, right? But they don't feel like they're not patterns. Like we started to looking for non-pattern ways to express this idea of like the African aesthetic. And that's how we stumbled on Alt Has Grotesque, which is the font we used. That's how we stumbled on the illustrative style, which I drew by myself painstakingly. Yeah, so like, when I told you that we used to do most of the work visually, I wasn't joking. Did all the motion, we shot all the photos. And Dami and I shot all the photos, did all the motion.
Wow.
We both worked on all the mock-ups. And I remember Eddie looking at the project and saying he couldn't really find any project or any studio that was thinking on that level and was executing at that quality. And it was something that, that made us like really, really proud of ourselves.
Wow.
I would say that along the way, the bar of the work didn't drop. What I would say is along the way, we started getting into our heads of what a design business should be. And then, like I said, burning out started kicking in, right? So we still had work. We still had clients towards the end. I think we even did some of our best work at the end of the studio for Eden Life. But
life
it is what it is.
It is still. Do you have a favorite project so far?
There are many. Like I actually like it's easier for me to pick like type because it's a smaller catalog.
Yeah.
But branding is like it's every single project we put our hearts into every single one. The work we did for Rise was very conceptual, very meaningful. The work we did for Mono was really good too.
I loved Mono.
The illustrative style for Mono was very clever, where like we take like the language from the logo mark and the louvers opening and closing.
Yeah, I think that motion was very.
And then
it was very visual.
Shine lights.
Yeah,
and then shine lights behind that, and that's what the illustrative style is. So like it's for Rise, it's like everything rises, like everything floats upward. So like it's many like really cool work, many really cool projects that we worked on. So it's going to be very hard for me to pick like a favorite.
I can imagine.
But there are some that I can very clearly remember how invested we all were at the studio. So let me shout out my team. Shout out Timmy, shout out Lekon, shout out Johnson, shout out Oiza, shout out Toby, shout out Sheung, and shout out who else? I hope I'm not missing anyone. It's not like we had so many people. Shout out Dami, obviously. Shout out I think that's it.
How many were you guys? Were you guys always like that number at every point?
Some people got poached, some people left. Like I think the most we were at the point in time was maybe like 6 or 7 at once. I think that's the largest we've ever been.
Wow.
Israel was also our counter. Shout out Israel. Shout out Seyi Olusanya.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. The second part of this episode will be released in a week, so stay tuned and please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all then. Thank you so much.